freaking first cut. Golly.
Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your round, 2.5 recap episode for this week's Genesis Invitational. And joining me to break it all down, it's Greg DuCharme. What up, Greg?
Let's call it day 3. This is day 3, our day three recap. And what a day it was, Rick. I mean, that was something else.
What a day. We get a 4-hour delay for wins. It wasn't just like, hey, come back in 4 hours. It was like, all right, we're gonna try again in an hour and a half. No, now go out to the range. No, just kidding, it's gonna be an hour. So this was like start and stop. At the end of the day, our final group got through 13. We'll talk about Sam Burns, we'll talk about all the chasers, but I mean, the idea of these guys who are such creatures of habit to be doing the start-stop thing constantly, like it was just a weird day.
Yeah, it's not an easy thing. Now, that being said, when you're a tournament player, you have dealt with this before, or you've dealt with the start and stops. It's not fun. It's not easy. But you do everything you can to get yourself in the right mindset before you start each time. And these guys have ways to kind of settle themselves down. Definitely a new scenario for a guy like Sam Burns, but for the most part, I mean, these guys understand how to deal with that. It's because they've done it before they get to the PGA Tour, but it's still, no matter how many times you've done it before, it's still not easy, and it still can get a little uncomfortable. It can get frustrating, especially when it's LA. I mean, you're in Los Angeles. When I would love to know when the last time we had a 4-hour delay is in LA. And then you add to that, it's not rain where you can look at the radar and say, right, this is going to pass in 10 minutes or 20 or 4 hours, or it's not going to pass. This is wind. And typically wind picks up through the afternoon. So if you're on the first tee and you're Sam Burns, you're expecting the wind to pick up throughout your round. And all of a sudden you're going, if I were him, I would think we're going to go out there and play 3 holes when it's kind of in the dusk time. So not easy.
Our 36-hole leader, Sam Burns, slept on a 5-shot lead. He got to the first tee this morning. He's addressing his ball. That's when the horn blew. So then he sits around for 4 more hours before he actually starts his rounds, and he didn't finish it. He played 13 holes, Greg, and there were a few moments that I want to point out here because he finished his day at 2 over par, but he went out in 1 over, and the highlight that we're all going to see, I was going to say we're all going to see on SportsCenter tomorrow. We're not going to see it on SportsCenter tomorrow, but the highlight we're going to talk about is what he did at number 6. This is the donut par 3. The guy is just absolutely dead right of the green. He's got a short backswing. He has nowhere to land it. I'm thinking bogey is going to be an amazing score here. He hits an absolute peach, gets it to roll down within tap-in range, makes par, and I'm thinking, wow, Sam Burns might have this under control.
This is the thing. This is kind of the reason why we talked about heading into the week how important short game is, because you get yourself into these situations. It's it was, I would say, not a great situation to be in. But the shot he hit, did you hear the interview after, Rick? I'm not sure if you got a chance to, but he basically said, yeah, I was in a tough spot. I hit a terrible shot off the tee, and I hit a great one. I was able to get it to feed down right down to the hole. It was such a simple answer. Yeah. It reminded me a little bit of Dustin Johnson in a way. So it was really cool to see. And you're right. It's probably, if he wins, maybe the shot of the tournament.
He's keeping the wheels on. You know, he gets to 10, he birdies 10, so he's even par through the day. He birdies 11, and then he gets to his final 2 holes of the day. Number 12, he 3-putts for bogey. Number 13, he's in the fairway with wedge in hand, yanks it left, makes another bogey there, and then that's when the horn blows, Greg. And I'm starting to think this guy's leaking oil. The stoppage might be really good for him. He's going to have to come out and play 5 holes on Sunday morning before he starts his final round. But this might have gotten ugly if he had to continue to play.
Well, especially you look at 14 and nobody can keep the ball on the 14th green in regulation anyway. I mean, the green is so firm. Anything you do, it seems like it's just going to bound over the back unless you play significantly far away from the flagstick. So that's no picnic, as they say. So the golf course is just getting tougher on the way in until you get to 17 when you have a par 5. So I do agree in a way where it's great that it ended because he 14 probably in the morning probably plays a little bit easier because the green's just not going to be so. You'll have an opportunity to stop it on the green. But again, it makes for a really long day. You're talking about a 6:50 start, and then you're likely in. I'm not sure how they're going to do it if they're going to repair after they finish, but you're likely in the last group or one of the last couple groups. It makes for a long day.
It certainly does. And I want to talk about the holes that he has left, the holes that Dustin Johnson has left, all of that stuff. We're going to do that down in the players to watch and betting stuff. So I want to talk about Matthew Fitzpatrick real quick, who has 1 hole to play. He finished 17 holes. He is 3 under par, which is like the round of the day. And he did it in pure psycho fashion, Greg, where he had a 10-hole stretch without a par. Let me just read you this 10-hole stretch here.
Yeah.
From number 3, he goes birdie, bogey, birdie, 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 bogey, makes the turn, birdie, bogey, bogey. Wow. That is, what do they call that? A 2-pencil kind of day.
Yeah, it's great. You don't see that very often. And it's a unique circumstance, especially when you have more birdies than bogeys, right? I mean, that's something you could see a 10-hole stretch without a par when you're just completely leaking oil. And maybe you make a couple of birdies on par 5s. But it was really good play. And it just speaks to how difficult the golf course sets up, because you can hit great shots and get penalized. But there's something about Matthew Fitzpatrick, Rick. He loves setups like this when it's really firm and fast and difficult. I think he played well last year at Memorial. And I want to say he played pretty well at BMW as well. And he was cited saying, look, this is the kind of setup that I really like. So when he gets in these situations, he's a guy to keep your eye on for sure.
Producer Jacob coming through in the clutch, confirming that. So 4th round tee times are going to be between 8:30 and 10:30. That's local. So they're going to start at 6:50. They will regroup based on 54 hole scores. So that is noteworthy, Greg. And how much of this, before we get into some of these chase guys, and I love the idea that some guys have no holes to play. Some guys have 5 holes. Like I love this. So I want to talk about it a lot. But before we do, how much of this is mental? How much of it is physical? We talk about how much of a creature of habit a lot of these guys are. The starting and stopping, the waking up early. Some guys rush to try to finish their round so they don't have to wake up early. This is not only a physical test on Sunday morning, it's probably a mental one as well.
It's an extremely long day. And you hear a 6:50 tee time and you're thinking, well, when I have a 6:50 tee time on Sunday, I'm getting up at 6:10, taking a quick shower, brushing my teeth on the way to the course and rolling out to the first tee. The guys on the PGA Tour aren't doing that, right? They have a gym, they have physio, they have time in the gym. I mean, they have at least an hour of warming up before they even get to the golf course. I think back to Brooks Koepka at I think it was in Memphis, the FedEx St. Jude Invitational, when he showed up 45 minutes before his tee time and kind of lit up the Twitter world. Like, this guy doesn't care. How's he? But he's warming up well before that. Right?
Twitter has a problem with Brooks getting there 35 minutes early or Hal Tong staying 4 hours late. You just cannot.
Yes, you cannot
please golf Twitter with how much time you spend on the range.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Hal Tong. That's a good pull. That's a really good pull. But my point is, for a 6:50 tee time, this may be a 3 a.m. wake up call. I mean, it likely is. So it's extremely early. And then you're playing a much later tee time. You're playing much deeper into the afternoon. Granted, fortunately, now on the West Coast, you're probably starting 3 hours earlier than you would on an East Coast event. So that shortens the day a little bit, because they're looking to get done around 6:30 Eastern. So 3:30 Pacific time. Right. So it's not quite as long, but still, you're talking about a 12-hour stretch if you're Sam Burns. If you're up at 3, done at 3:30, 12 and a half hours of high intensity, high pressure golf. Not easy.
I'm going to intertwine some of the odds for the outright number with some of the holes that we have left here. So Sam Burns is 3-1 to win this golf tournament, according to our friends over at William Hill. He has 5 holes to play. He's currently 2 clear of Matthew Fitzpatrick, who has a hole to play, and we'll talk about some of these other guys. So Fitzpatrick is 4-1, along with Dustin Johnson. Now, here's the thing with Dustin Johnson, Greg. He is currently, as we speak, 3 shots back, but he is staring at a 17-foot putt for par on the 14th hole, which in all likelihood he does not make, and he will be 4 shots back within 2 minutes of him starting his round. So you have to consider that when you look at the odds, and then he's going to get to play a par 5 coming in. He's going to have, 4 more holes, and it's not a particularly easy stretch of golf for anybody who's finishing up on that side.
So looking at the rankings, you got 14 is playing in round 3, the 5th most difficult. Then the 10th most difficult is 15. 16 is the 8th. 17 is one of the easiest, 16th, and 18 was the toughest hole today. So those are very difficult ranks. But what's more interesting is when you go down and look at the birdies, right? 18 gave up 1 birdie today so far, which is extremely low. So 14 has given up 3 birdies today, 6 for 15, 4 for 16. So not a lot. And even 17, which is one of the easiest holes on the course, only gave up 12 birdies today. So there's no easy hole out here, and you're kind of looking to hold on. What I'm curious to see is when the greens at 6:50 in the morning, between then and when they finish the 3rd round, how much softer are the greens? Are they going to hold? Is that going to allow for more birdies? Because these guys can hit great shots with any club in the bag, right? They can fly it really high, and they can get the ball to land where they want it to land. It gets really difficult when you can't control what happens after that. When you lose control of after the first bounce, where it goes. I think that's what you're seeing today. When it gets really firm like that, that's why it gets so difficult.
We're going to find out very early where Sam Burns is at. I almost kind of want to wait on these lines until we kind of see Sam Burns play his final 5 holes or so. If he plays his final 5 holes at field average, he's going to play them 1.2 strokes over par. So you got to think the lead might be 8 under or 9 under if he just kind of plays to field average by the time he even starts the final round. So I think you've got to work that into your calculations here, Greg, and you've got to work into your calculations that Dustin Johnson is staring at a long par putt, that Patrick Cantlay, I actually think he teed off on, let me confirm this. I think he teed off on 17. So he's playing the par 5, but he's in the fairway bunker. So this is like kind of all these things have to go into what you're trying to figure out for what the lead's going to be and how many shots these guys are going to be behind when the final round actually starts.
So you think you'd rather wait until round 3 is completely over? Or is there something, when you look at this, do you think there's an advantage you can kind of get ahead of something because a guy's in a particular spot?
I think that all of the spots that are so of what I know right now, Matthew Fitzpatrick at 4-1, I think is really interesting because he has 1 hole to play. He's got to play 18. It's very difficult, but he still has to play. He only has to play 1 hole. Of all the other situations, like Dustin Johnson is not in a particularly good spot, but he does have a par 5. Sam Burns, obviously the difficult stretch that we have coming up here. The guy that I actually think, Greg, and I hate to even, titillate you with this, is Tony Finau. Tony Finau is done. Tony Finau had already hit his drive on 18 when they blew the horn. He decides to finish, which I believe is correct and smart, so he doesn't have to have the early wake-up call tomorrow. He is at 5 under. If we assume that Burns, okay, like 50% of the time, Burns is going to be at like 9 under heading into the final round. Like 25% of the time, he's going to be at like 8 under or 7 under if things go really bad. And if he somehow like 10% this and gets himself to 11 under, then I think he wins the golf tournament anyway. But if he comes back to 8 or if he comes back to 7, which is not all that unlikely, Tony Finau's then like 2 shots back. He shoots a 68. He wins this golf tournament.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, Rick, because it's very similar to where we were yesterday, where you have to, if Sam Burns has this in his hands, he can run away with this and take it and end all of our chances. So right. In that case, you're not going to get great odds on Sam Burns at this point. But if you assume that he's not the guy and he's going to fall off, the pot becomes much more interesting. And I agree with you, Rick. I think Tony Finau is a very interesting candidate. And he's also doing a great job tee to green. Tony Finau's 3rd right now, tee to green. And I think he's doing pretty well. He's 3rd tee to green. And what was I looking at before? 8th approaching the green. So he's hitting the ball very, very nicely right now, which I think is a huge advantage. The one question that I have is what's going on with his short game? You look at the around the green leaderboard right now, and it's a lot of guys near the top. Cameron Smith is, I mean, not leading the tournament, but doing very well. Dustin Johnson is in 4th. Wyndham Clark, who's there, is in 6th. Matthew Fitzpatrick is in 8th. So there's a lot of guys up near the top on that. And Tony Finau's down at 25th, which, you know, I suppose for him, for Tony Finau, is not a terrible place to be, 25th around the green. So
he's 18-1. Now I actually have a pre-tournament wager on Tony. I would have to go check to see that number is probably 25 or something like that, maybe 30 actually. But I don't know, man. And you know, I'm not a Tony Finau truther, but like this feels like a really good spot to just steal this, with the caveat, of course, what you mentioned. Sam Burns has to play the final 5 holes 1 or 2 over par to give us a chance.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the number 68. So he goes out in round 4, shoots 3 under, he gets to 8. That can there's one way where that can happen really quickly. There's another way where even if Dustin Johnson is sitting at 6 and Patrick Cantlay is sitting at 6, are you going to take Tony to beat those guys? And I have a hard time with that, because they're heavy hitters, and that's my one caveat. But if it's complete carnage tomorrow, that's where a Tony Finau kind of sneaking his way in, posting a number early, that's where he ends up with a win. And that's how this guy breaks the hump, I think.
Riviera played nearly 2.5 shots over par thus far in the 3rd round. If it plays the same way on Sunday, or plays 2 shots over par, and Tony Finau shoots 3 under, and Cantlay would still have to gain 4 shots on the field, which of course he can do. It would just be a tall task for anybody. So I don't know. I feel like I'm just, I've got the tinfoil hat on at this point, trying to figure out a way to get Tony Finau to victory. It just, I don't know. I've never felt probably this strongly about it. So I guess we'll find out. Where it's going to be an absolute exciting finish no matter what. The final stretch of holes, the difficulty, the field that we have stacked up, a guy trying to win his first golf tournament. This is a really fun finish I think we're in store for, Greg.
Yeah, I would have to say so as well. It's not going to be one of those tournaments where you're seeing birdies coming down the stretch. We see that quite often on the PGA Tour. I think this is going to be more of a survival test. And if you can execute the one shot and make a clutch birdie putt from 25 feet or something like that, then it's going to go a long way, which is cool to see. It's cool to see a guy make 3 birdies on the back 9 and 1 or 0 bogeys, and it really gains a lot of ground. And that's the kind of tournament you're going to see tomorrow. All
right. Well, about this time, actually maybe earlier tomorrow on Sunday, we'll be back talking about this. But for now, big thanks to producer Jacob behind the scenes. Also, that's Greg DuCharme. Thank you very much. You can follow him on Twitter at @TheRealGFD. You can follow me at RickRunGood. This has been The First Cut, and we'll catch you next time.